So I've got Max, who is the replacement for me at my old shop, and this is my next door neighbor. This is Pete. He does what we do, did once upon a time, and he worked on real hot roddy shit. So we're gonna drink, we're gonna answer questions, and it's gonna be a good time. And if we're lucky, if you could be so graceful as to grab that sheet of paper, not my shipping label, off of here, we got a couple little questions, and looks like there's nobody here to talk about engine nonsense, so it's all good. But what were we just talking about?
Me fucking up a Hemi block and having to repair it.
When was this? Did you tell me that's the story? Do you have a beer? You do have a beer. Okay.
So okay, I'm working on a 3-axis Rottweiler X65, F65. I'm setting up the program, so I just bored through the bushing, or roughed on the bush hole for the bushing. It was at the bottom of the hole, and I was going to wrap it to number, wrap it to but I double pumped, and it went from the bottom of the hole diagonally out of the hole. Oh, it was bad. But you're a machinist, right? So I get on the phone, call up, get a hold of B. What is it? B. Where are we getting stuff from? I think it was BHJ. Where getting the bushings from. And just had set me up with one fat bushing. And was able to repair it, but it was the $1,800 solid carbide bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the boss.
Have you crashed? Have you had a big crash yet?
I've had a couple.
Like what? What did you crash?
I've broken a couple probe tips.
Oh, whatever. You haven't actually done real damage yet?
Issues I had was trying to do scroll programs for valve covers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was always having issues with file space with the machine was being so antiquated.
Yeah, I had my biggest crash was so it's the same surfacer that's at your shop now, except it used to live next to other things. There were benches on the left, benches on the right, and it was usually fine. You could park things right next to it. It was all good. And if you don't know how those tables work, it's a fucking hydraulic way or whatever. So it uses hydraulic pressure, I think, to push it left to right. I don't know how that works. Do you know how that works?
It runs on 2 flat ways.
Okay.
It's basically in a hydraulic bath.
Yeah.
So it just slides on top of it.
Okay, so, well,
Yeah.
it's a, yes.
Or no, Winona.
No, it's a storm. Is it a Winona?
Yeah.
Winona? Whatever. It's a hydraulic table. It's not attached to anything. It just floats on top of the bed, okay? I was surfacing a Jeep, and of course it was a 2-year-only Jeep. The table, as it traversed over, it would make its pass, everything was all good, except I went, all right, I'm on my final pass, I'm gonna run this thing real slow. Let me let this machine run in the background while I walk away and run another machine. Well, as it turns out, if that table runs into a roll cart that's right next to the machine, that roll cart will happen to lift the entire table up into the cutter head. And so if you don't know how much horsepower, 15, 20 horsepower is, big old motor, big guy, you don't want to stick your fingers in that. It'll definitely try to cut an iron Jeep head in half. And it makes it about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch deep before it stops trying to cut it in half.
How much weld did it take to fix that one?
Brad and I Brad's the owner of that shop. We spent about 3 hours trying to weld that thing up, and we did successfully weld it up.
Bronze or?
No, he spray welded it. And mind you, I'm only about 1.5 years into this shop, so I hadn't brought my real value to the table yet. In fact, I never did in my whole entirety of my career there. I was more talent than I was experience or brains. That was not my last crash, definitely my first big one, and that was one of my first big ones there. It did get welded up and out the door, so whatever, it's all good. Yeah, that was my biggest crash.
It makes me feel better about my fuck ups.
Well, I did have the flying crank.
You shot a crank out somewhere?
Yeah, you're good. I put a comment on your flywheel page.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah, the 302. Well, it wasn't 302. It was a D-stroked Ford from Huffaker.
Okay.
And they brought me. And they had sent it out and had it turned from a Ford crank to a 283 crank. And they just gave it to me and said, here you go. Here's the bob weight.
Yeah.
without having any, not saying what the previous bob weight was. So that thing came out of the balancer.
Nice. Yeah.
That's always a fun time.
And it took a chunk out of your hand?
It was one of those deals where I was like, yeah, no, let it hit the waves. Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm scary.
I've met some people that had chunks taken out of them by the balancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You haven't had any balancer mishaps?
Not there. Not there. There was one time I was running the lathe and I was wondering why the coolant was starting to turn red.
What? What the fuck does that mean?
My hand got a little too close to the chuck and it just barely nicked my knuckle.
Okay.
But next thing I know, I'm starting to see red in the coolant.
I almost had.
Back, you're like, oh, what the fuck?
I almost had a Russian lathe incident. Probably wouldn't have been that bad.
You gotta describe that because it's like, I know what Russian roulette it is, but
You've never seen those videos of the shop accidents in Russia?
No.
And I'm an advocate for showing these.
I'm all over the sandal machinists. They're the great. The stuff they do is like, oh my.
The Pakistani machinists.
Sticking cranks back together.
Oh yeah.
Go grab my laptop. Let's find some Pakistani machinist videos.
Oh my god. Preheating engine blocks with cow chips. Weld them back together. I'm totally. I'm sidetracking your conversation.
What conversation? No. What were we just? Oh, my Russian lathe accident.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had back when I had the shop in Vallejo. We had a great big giant lathe, and you could swing a 24-inch part, bigger than my ego at the time, and I thought it would be a good idea to actually no, it was a good idea. I had to modify some brake discs, okay, but they were like drilled and slotted. They were for a motorcycle. They were real cool looking, okay. The Harley guys, they've really got to drive home that their entire personality is entirely their bicycle. So, got to show off with the bike. Now, I don't know, I had to make the inside bore of those brake discs larger. Easy. Okay, so I'm sitting here, made my machine, I made my modification and I decided I'm just gonna go with the machine off. I'm starting to feel around, okay, is there a burr or something? Whatever it was a bad idea because I had one of my fingers inside of one of the holes in this brake rotor. And then I think I knocked off a part or a tool that was being stored on top of the machine. And it fell, and these lathes machinery tends to have a safety interlock built into the on-off switch. Apparently on that lathe it wasn't working because that tool fell off of the top of the lathe, turned the machine on, and the edge of the brake disc caught my finger, tried to rip my fingernail off, and threw my hand out of the part instead of ripping my finger off with the part.
At least it wasn't your dick.
Don't stick your dick where you wouldn't stick your fingers. Wait, no. Don't stick your fingers where you wouldn't stick your dick.
Looks like it hurt. You still got it though.
Part of I do still have my dick, yes.
The finger.
With the finger? No, I don't have my fingers. I don't feel them at all.
Yeah, I didn't get maimed until I started this HVAC gig. Then I got my finger stuck in a pulley.
I got my hand stuck in a wire wheel on a bench grinder that still had a hand guard on it, or a rest on it. Yeah. So the part got pulled into the grinder. This was when I was a teenager. Got pulled into the grinder, flung the part across the room, and then my hand was still there. And that's how I have this wonderful scar on my hand, which was a lot longer, but nature heals itself.
The master machinist at the shop I was at, I don't know what this guy's deal was, but he would always stand in the chip path. He'd come over and try and check your worth and step right into the chip path. I had to drive him to the hospital 3 times for shit in his eyes. He might still be out there, but he'd walk around like this with his arm jacked up. That's what they're doing there. He had to have shoulder surgery. he tried to save us from torquing stuff, but I put everything together.
Oh shit! All right, let's go to our first question. So Neon, what the fuck is happening here? Neon 570, biggest pain in the ass job you've ever had. I had a pro stock of some sort, or somebody's old pro stock cylinder heads roll through from the United Arab Emirates. And the man, despite the oil money, he had a budget. He was a sensible guy. He didn't want to replace the whole entire top end of his engine. And, don't let a small blow up stop you. So the thing rolls in, and I shit you fucking not, it was missing a chunk from the fist-sized chunk for the corner of the cylinder head. Oh yeah, no, the entire thing missing.
So it was on nitro, so it just blew it off.
Yeah, blew it off. Fuck yeah,
You just
yeah.
torched it.
Torched it.
Yeah, once that
gone.
lights off, it'll burn anything.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, cylinder pressure. It's a hell of a thing. And I sat there welded for a day, a hard day, and I used probably 2 pounds of filler welding up this head, and a fist-sized chunk welded all up. And surprise, surprise, that was the least of the problems that thing had. Believe it or not, the Middle East is kind of a... what I used this term the other day, and it wasn't racist, I swear.
Pink.
Is it out of scope to say it's a desert for quality machining? I had a better, cleverer term for it, but it's a wasteland. You can't get good work out there. It doesn't exist. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to live there, unless you live there. So that was the biggest pain in the ass I think I had. Maybe, at least in my actual career. I've worked on other things that I could recall that were difficult, but that was kind of difficult. There were valve guides that were like homemade receiver grooves for the fire rings, or the flame hoops that were like made of epoxy. Mm-hmm. Spool gun welds all over the head. It was a mess. It was a real mess. I repaired a bunch of shit. It was all good. As far as I can tell, it's still running to this day, somehow. But, the standard's really low when it's strictly racing. I don't know. What about you?
It's hard to say. It all blends together.
This man gets a pass. Anything difficult that comes to mind?
I'm trying to remember. My dyslexic brain is not pulling it up. It's not a Merlin. What was the other?
Merlin?
No,
Whoa.
not the Merlin. It was Allison.
Okay. Some kind of tank engine?
It was they were aircraft.
Oh, it was a plane engine. Yeah.
This fella from Washington State was flying these because he couldn't find anybody to deal with them.
Yeah.
And we had the, what was it, what was that gam? It was not a Rottler. Oh, it was a really fancy 10 stone diamond head.
Okay. Some kind of Tennessee abrasive.
It was a CNC hone. And
Yeah.
And he'd bring us these things that were straight out of storage and want us to bore them to size. And it was like an offie.
Okay.
So you had to machine it towards the head.
Yeah.
Or towards the combustion chamber.
Yeah.
So just getting in the machine, because they're, it's a 6-cylinder bank, they're almost 4 feet long. So 5.5-inch bore, 7.5-inch stroke.
Jesus.
Yeah, so they got this long ass bore, and this material would come off like wire when you tried to hone it. And you'd have to stop and pull it up and rake this stuff off. and to get them straight, that was the other deal, because the bores were held in place with a crown bolt that was put in with a 10-foot lever.
Yeah.
And you pushed until the bench moved, kind of thing. So these things were in there like a can. They would be rippled because they were so long, the sleeves.
Yeah.
To get the fucking thing straight was just such a pain in the ass. The material was so hard.
Did it have to be straight though?
They were going back in planes,
Was it literally going back in a plane?
The motors are a work of art. It was a pickle and fork rod.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And they were just like, and they were polished, and it was, and they were made by Cadillac. The rods were. It was just like, oh my gosh, this stuff is just gorgeous. It had the Cadillac stained into the rod and symbols.
Nice. I've got a plane story. When I was at his job, still a young apprentice, Once long ago, we got a Cessna engine mount in that it had a crack. And boss goes, "Hey Josh, we need to weld this up." Yeah, I go, "Yeah, no problem. I got you. I'm the champ." I thought I was a real gangster with the welder then. A real hero. And I'm starting welding on this thing, and it's all fine. The thing was sandblasted, and the thing with the sandblasting is it embeds that abrasive in there. So then what happens is you get these little like glossy, brown, glassy silicate deposits at the top of your weld. It doesn't affect anything, but it's kind of ugly. But it welded good. It was just chromoly, nothing special. I'm getting this thing welded up. It had a couple little simple joints. Mind you, this engine mount is also the structure of the plane. So for good reason, you want it to be not cracked. So I'm welding it all up, and I'm sitting there waiting for it to cool off. I'm getting ready.
You're hearing that?
No, I don't. No, I didn't hear anything crack. I go back to do another pass on it, and I get a puff, like I go, "What the fuck was that?" I feel heat. I lift my helmet up, and there's a flame, like this, just spouting out of the top of the mount.
Was it filled with nitrogen? Or?
No, it was filled with. Okay, no. Before I get ahead of myself, I walk over to Brad, the owner of the shop, and I go, "Hey, your engine mount's on fire." He goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, they're filled with oil." And he walks over with me and he goes, "You see these rivets all over this engine mount?" He goes, "They fill them up with oil, plug the hole with these aluminum rivets, and then that way..."
You can check for cracks?
Yeah, you see an oil leak coming out of the engine mount. It's a tubular structure. That way you can see that the mount is damaged. And I go, "All right, I guess it's all good." I popped one of the rivets out, drained it, and finished the job. But yeah, that was my plane story. And then it had to be sent out and
X-rayed or?
X-rayed. It had to be X-rayed and approved for reuse, and there's some FAA stuff. And the inspector passed it, and he goes, "I don't like this I left the silicate glass on top of the weld. It doesn't do anything." He was like, "I don't like seeing that." I go, "Okay, it doesn't, did the weld pass X-ray?" He goes, "Yeah." but I don't want to see that. I go, okay, then I'll buff it off next time. So we passed it, it went back. As far as I know, a plane hasn't fallen out of the sky due to my poor welding skills. Let's see. What else we got here? Do we want to talk about straightening heads? I don't think so. Straightening inline 6 and V12 heads. They're long. If they're extra thick, they don't want to straighten. You get them really hot and you pull them down, force them to go places they don't want to go. It's almost, I don't even want to say this word because I'll probably get demonetized, but you straighten them against their will. It's like praying the gay away. Let's see, what else? Ever convert small block Chevy or other heads to LS1 valves? LS1 valves are pretty common. You can put LS1 valves in old Chevys. Same thing with old Fords. They're about the same length. Allison motors are common in pulling tractors.
A whole bunch of torque.
A whole bunch of torque. I had someone ask me if I wanted to port a set of RollsRoyce V16 heads or something like that. I think it was an air-cooled, no, I don't think it was air-cooled. It was like a giant almost 20-liter tank motor that was in a tractor for tractor pulling, and he had 2 turbos or 4 turbos hanging off of it.
At least.
At least?
Think about that. How many liters, you know?
Yeah, something to the effect of like 4,000 horsepower, if not better.
So if you had to, how many hours would you bid for that job?
100 at least. At least. Oh yeah, that guy. And I'm sure if you own multiple World War II era tank engines and have them modified inside of a tractor for pulling, I'm sure you've got a little bit of expendable income. At the end of the day, like many of my ex-girlfriends, I ghosted him. So I left him hanging. Let's see. Do we have some questions here? Let's see. How do you wear pants or a shirt in the shop? That's dangerous. I don't wear clothes in the shop. It's usually just the apron. And it's a real vibe. My wife goes on the camera and she goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" I go, I'm just in my zone.
Yeah, Brad's not a big fan of that one either.
Have you ever seen Brad naked? Because I have. I've seen that man cry before.
I believe the naked part, but not so much the crying.
It's just a little bit of man. It's just a body. It doesn't mean anything. You're feeling the Gen Xer in the room is really feeling uncomfortable with this conversation.
Yeah, even when I was traveling with the NHRA team, I got my own room.
Did you?
Yeah. We all did.
Man. You can't even share a bathroom, huh?
They spent it was my apnea.
Okay.
That scared the fuck out of me. I'd stop breathing for minutes at a time.
Oh, so you're sitting there half dead on the bed, and they're sitting there.
I finally started traveling with the machine just before the wife said, "You gotta stop traveling."
So the reality is that people can't sleep in the room with you.
Pretty much.
You instill panic in them. I'm told I have sleep apnea. I don't believe it. I just snore. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a snore. Everybody snores.
Yeah, the wife left. I stopped using that machine. You can be kept up by the machine, or you can be kept up by the apnea.
All right, Skyline Fever. I see a lot of videos of dual overhead cam and single overhead cam engines where the cams ride directly on the aluminum and the cam journals are trashed. How do you deal with it? Junk it. With good reason. Probably because it's replaceable. If it's irreplaceable, I mean, what do you do? I mean, I just got myself into trouble with a friend of mine.
You could line bore it, but is it worth it?
It screws all kinds of shit up if you line bore a head, an overhead cam head. So you've got to be prepared to deal with that. I got into trouble with a dual overhead cam Cosworth engine, and it's a glorified Pinto. But I couldn't find a core, couldn't find a replacement. The thing was warped a mile, cams locked into place. So I sat there and I hand scraped with a knife, essentially. I scraped the bearings into place to the point where I could get the cam to spin. Not only that, I straightened the head. He straightened the head.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the cam spun. Except the cam center line was so fucked up, it was still putting weird tension all over the camshaft. So it was essentially bending the camshaft when it was installed. And that happens during normal operation, but a friend of mine ended up being the guy to put it together, and he's going, dude, what the hell did you do? He goes, this is a mess. And he's very particular.
You should have thought it before.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. It doesn't really have that much meaning when he's the guy dealing with it.
Yeah, big a basket case full of parts, you know, what can you do?
The whole thing was a basket case. So it's going to be fine at the end of the day. He had to deal with a bunch of BS that I could have prevented if I put my foot down and went, hey, this thing's junk. I was more determined to keep the car and that engine going instead of just killing it right then and there. I should have just killed it. That was in the future, I probably won't do that, but damaged cam housings, it's usually not worth the squeeze. If it's something rare and expensive, maybe we can talk about that. And the times have come and gone where you're boring heads for cam bearings. You know, I've seen guys weld up cam journals and remachine them. In fact, I've got a set of Ford GT heads in the corner here that just came in that I've got to make 2 cam caps for. That's probably worth it. Would I do that on your piece of crap Honda? No, probably not.
About trying to save a triple S series, L series Datsun.
Okay, let's talk about that. So Datsuns. Datsuns can be infinitely fucked up.
I got a job for you next door when I finally pull the head off.
Yeah, he...
Got a wrist pin locking up, and I've got a bunch of epoxy holding water back and a finished spark plug holder.
Oh, I've got a set of big block Chevy heads that I cut into water on the exhaust seats, putting entirely the wrong valve seat into the heads on. Or I put entirely the wrong valve seats into it and hit water everywhere and pulled seats out. In fact, I removed the seats I installed. Our friend Jeff, had a tool that's an expanding collet on a pneumatic air hammer and a pneumatic slide hammer. That's a product. Yeah, that's a product from Newen called a tug gun. And
okay.
I don't know the man, but if I was him,
the tug gun was something else.
Well, if I was him, I would be curious enough to give it a shot. But we pulled the seats out. I sealed under the seats and shoved those same seats back in. And then I epoxied behind the seat counterbores as well and killed the water jackets. I've done that a few times since then successfully too. Would I recommend doing that? Especially on something that you have liability with? No. There was a conversation I had with the owner of the vehicle. I went, hey, I fucked up on this. I hit water. Oh, and by the way, there were, again, numbers matching, 6-month only big block Chevy castings that were like, I found one set at the time on eBay, and a pair was like $6,000 to replace. I called him up and I go, hey, I really screwed up on this. I go, I'll do anything it takes to get this sorted out. You know, I'll send it out to get welded, this and that. And he goes, dude, I found those heads that were numbers matching for this car at a swap meet. And he goes, I paid like $400 for it.
Was that your 2-inch exhaust seats?
Yes. Yeah. I put 2-inch exhaust seats into big block Chevy that were like 300 thousandths thick. I put them in at full depth and hit water. And I probably wouldn't have hit water if the heads weren't all rotted away. But here we are. It's still running to this day. It's actually Dustin from American Classics.
No, not.
Dustin from Driveway Finds. It's his dad's car. Oh, okay. Oh, L series. So L series.
L series, those big 2 and a.
Yeah. They're
2
huge.
2 3/8 cam journals.
Yeah, big old cam journals. I've got an L series cam here. Where's my L series cam? Let's see.
Speaking of which, if you're interested, my
Whoops.
buddy's got an L24 block he's trying to give away.
Nope. He can have it.
Nobody.
Oh,
There you go. No, I guess that was jabbery. Oh,
it's huge though.
No, that's it. Is it L series? Yeah, it's L series.
That's an L series. This is an L
So
L24
So
camshaft.
that's right at 2 inch then.
Yeah, it's
About
pretty damn large. In
50
fact,
millimeter, I would say it that way.
so it's pretty good.
Do you have to hold it like that?
It's either that or this. I mean, it's pretty straight as an arrow.
Don't point that thing at me.
So this is a Datsun L series camshaft. Big old journals on these things. The problem is that they got super warped and beat on. I mean, they were really great workhorses for the time, and especially compared to the unreliable options that you had in the European market. The American cars weren't really that great.
Cam chains were cam chains.
Yeah, I mean, these things were popular and people loved them, and people still love them to this day. I mean, what's the oldest L series at this point? I mean, they're 50, almost 60 years old.
68.
Yeah, so I mean, they're almost 60 years old, if not older. I mean, U series also was a similar thing, so that's like the Datsun Roadster.
Yeah, you'd see, yeah.
That's an even worse bastard. They had problems. So the nice thing about those is the cam towers, the housings that this cam rides in, they're their own piece. They're interchangeable from head to head because they weren't bored specifically for the head. So really the thing that you need to worry about is the top of the head flat. So if you got a warped head, you could straighten it and then resurface the top.
You keep cutting the bottom, but yeah.
Oh,
you can line
dude.
that cam up.
Dude, I used to weld up combustion chambers at RPM. I used to weld up combustion chambers on these things and put like a LS-shaped chamber in them.
Chamber?
Yeah, so that would emulate like the P90 casting. It's ultra rare. I would be surprised if you ever even saw one in the shop. But it looks like an LS, right?
Okay.
But I would weld up.
Until you get CC.
So the heart-shaped chamber, right? So I'd weld up a heart-shaped chamber in those heads. Early in my career, I wasn't very good at understanding HAZ, which means heat affected zone. I'd warp the crap out of already warped heads. So there were definitely a few heads that I had like a 30, they were warped to begin with, and then they would be extra warped after the welding. I'd lop like 30 thousandths off the top of the head. Then I'd have to cut the deck. All the chambers are different. I'd have to make that work, and then I'd have to screw around shimming the cam towers up and down.
Cam towers, yeah.
Yeah.
Cam chains, yeah.
Yeah, it's stack multiple shims. But the nice thing about the Datsun is the fact that you can take something really screwed up and make it usable. Would I recommend it? No, but you can. So Datsun's, awesome engines, a copy of old Mercedes designs.
Exactly. You put a mirror image. They did the same thing with the push rod, the MG motors. You put a mirror next to it, and then oh, there's the Datsun motor.
And they had these cool little finger followers too that were just, it's simple. If you know how to set up the rocker geometry on those, it's pretty foolproof.
Yeah.
Datsun's.
Wish I had a rev chip in mine a couple of times.
Dude, you're dating yourself. Rev chip.
Rocker arms flying off.
A friend of mine had a 944 with a chip in it that didn't have a rev limiter, and it would bury the tack. And it would keep on revving like at least another 1,000 RPM until it floated the valves. And don't get me wrong, the valve float sounded pretty cool. Let's see. What else do we got? That's it. We're moving on. Were SBI Seats garbage when you were around?
SBI.
SBI valve seats.
SB?
SB International. The blue box. Well, then it would have been a white box.
No, SBI. I remember the blue box. I don't remember you. I just remember blue boxes laying around the shop. Maybe we just use guides.
You might have used the guides. They were crap when I was there. They were probably crap when you were doing it. A friend of mine struggled with SBI seats, and it's just, it's a weird material. It's like kind of gummy.
I want to say PSI stuff we used. I know they were very proud of it. Everything was either titanium or yeah, it was like all exotic shit.
Maybe this just wasn't your realm since you're a hot rodder. The SBI makes a lot of good quality rebuilder stuff, but with older equipment, it's not as friendly to work with. Oh, here we go. Live chat. Okay. More stuff directed exactly at me. Nice watch. Do they make them for men? From Alex Boucher. I'm pretty hetero-flexible. Wait, no, fluid. I'm pretty gender fluid. That's gonna get me demonetized.
What's wrong with women's watches and fruity drinks?
I am having a fruity drink. It's a whiskey sour with a couple lemon seeds floating around in it, but I can't afford to drink out anymore, so I'm drinking at home.
California, I'm sure they're going to put some kind of tax on it.
California. There's 16 people in here, but not nearly enough questions. I don't know, you just had a big fiasco with a big block. A lot of rotted out garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, the just get it running again job that turns into way too much time and way too much shit.
But what's get it running again really mean? Because that standard is different for a lot of people. I mean, I drive around you've ridden in my truck. It's all spring.
It fires on all 8, right?
It does fire on all 8, especially when it's warm.
Where's the numbers matching story was a fellow had a nice Camaro 396.
Mm-hmm.
Took it to Wednesday night drags.
Mm-hmm.
Made a couple passes. Ooh, big vibration. Drove it home.
Yeah.
Broke the crank.
Oh, nice.
Broke the crank at the rear journal. But it was driving the thing. He busted all the mains out of the block.
Oh, you know what? That happens, doesn't it?
It took us months, but we came up with a numbers matching block and put it back together.
No shit.
Yeah.
I saw.
He busted it up, man. It was just. You could lift the crank out with the 2 rear caps.
Wow.
The 2 rear mains.
Yeah.
To it. Yeah. Like.
The 6-liter. Do you have the crank?
Yeah, I remember my wall of shame stuff I brought.
You do have a wall of shame. My 6-liter that came out of my Suburban, it was one of those stories. Original owner takes it to one of those quickie lube places. They forget to put oil in it, and it sat in our old boss's, my old boss's back field for 6-7 years. I buy the thing, pull the motor out, and I go, "Oh, I'll save this block for something." I couldn't use a big enough hammer to get that engine split apart. And when I finally got it split apart enough to see the real damage, it spun all the main bearings and then split. And this is an iron LS block, mind you, tough as can be. Split the block right in half, up the main, all the way up to the cam housings, up to the cam bores.
Seen it.
Yeah, that's pretty common, especially when you're lacking lubricity in your life. Mm-hmm. Older women over 50 would know exactly what that means.
Real quick though, can we get a shout out for Brad's Field?
Brad's Field? Brad's Field? Yeah, it's done a lot of us justice, especially when your car dies and it needs a place to live.
You're gonna go out and hunt around out there.
We've both had dead cars in the back in Brad's backfield multiple times. My Suburban's gone back there several times. Your Subaru is currently not there, but how long was it there?
Only a couple years.
Only a couple years. That's pretty good. Yeah.
But you know the mice need homes.
The mice do need homes, and that truck always had a weird parasitic draw in the electrical system. And then another thing it would do was when you would accelerate wide open, all the lights in the car would dim. That thing boogied though with the LS3 that I had in it.
That'd be a good one for the radio.
What's that?
You know, dial in the AM radio at like 540 hertz, and you can take it around the motor and find.
Oh, dude.
I'm sorry, I'm old school, but
that's pretty old school.
We used to do shit like that on the dyno, and that's why I'm kind of bad hearing. Is that they'd load the motor, and I'd go in there with the radio, and you'd go along. He's like, "Fuck, there it is, right there." It'd take you right to it. Okay, that's a bad plug wire right there.
Oh, here's a good one. Skyline Fever again with the bangers. What car turned you guys into car guys? Okay, I'll start. I was like 15 or 14. I had some older friends, bad influences. I met them through fighting. Okay, so I did mixed martial arts was just getting really popular at the time. And a guy that I trained with, I was talking to him about my first car, and I was looking at all these different things, and I wanted to buy one of these Japanese import cars, you know, as you do when you're a young kid. You know, and he goes, I'll show you a cool 4-cylinder. And he takes me out, him and his friend on Veterans Day. They take me street racing in 944 turbos that were quote unquote gangster tuned with wideband fuel, air fuel gauges, fuel pressure, homemade fuel pressure regulators and homemade boost controllers out of plumbing fittings. And he took me, and we went racing against a group of Hondas one night. And I think that was the fastest I'd ever been in a car for a pretty big portion of my life. But yeah, that was very irresponsible, but really cool when you're a 14-year-old. 944s, my big portion of my life was spent ogling those cars. Never again in my older age, but you know, it's a fond memory of mine. I don't know. What do you think?
Mine was Colin McRae at the X Games and Ken Block and watching Top Gear.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah,
what about you?
That was one of those small world stories.
Okay.
Growing up in Central California, Santa Maria.
Yeah.
And I'd be walking home with my rabbits hanging from my belt and my 20 gauge side by side shotgun. I'd stop off at this fella's house. He had a 57 Chevy, blown 57 Chevy, candy apple red. Blown boat, big block boat, V drive, and he towed it with a 57 5-window Chevy, all candy apple red. The whole thing's set up. And he'd take me for rides, and I'd give him some quail or a bunny.
Yeah.
And yeah, here I am. No, what was I? Got to be 50 years old at that point. I'm working at Watson Racing. And this guy's one of our like, I don't know this guy from Adam, right? It's been all these years. It was like 15, 13, you know. I think he moved away before I even got my driver's license. And I'm working at the shop, and one of our well-off patrons comes in and takes us all to lunch over the holiday. He says, "Well, where'd you grow up?" And I said, "Santa Maria." And he says, "Well, whereabouts?" I said, "Creston." He says, "I lived on Monroe." And I said, "Did you have a 57 Chevy boat, and a boat and a pickup?" And he says, "Yeah." And I says, "I'm Pete. I'm the quail." And like, "Fuck yeah!" It's like, oh, shit. Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of Master Machine's good customers, and yeah, good guy. What was his name? Randy. I think he might still be out there. Armstrong.
Randy Armstrong.
Yeah, he used to run still running a 57 blown, like a Probot car in the nostalgia drags on alcohol.
We were just talking about this. The thing that you get lost in when I think you're early on. Well, I guess some people. No, this isn't true. Okay. Well, what I was gonna say was you kind of lust for horsepower, and you start to realize that it's a different experience having a really fast car versus like a car that you can really enjoy and drive.
Actually, a Ford. Yeah, that's
and actually a Ford.
that's where the L Series Datsun came in. You know, it's like I can make this thing do it. You know, that's always been my MO. Is take a car that's not supposed to do what you're supposed to put. Yeah, I'm gonna make
Oh,
this.
dude. My point of view, not a popular point of view, is you're just making the car worse because you're doing things that it wasn't designed to do. Yeah, see, that's the thing. This is a me thing. I'm not saying has to be your thing, but yeah. No,
Well, it's like the Catalina rides like a NASCAR of the day, but yeah, it's still fun to drive.
Catalina's still fun to drive,
Someday.
especially. We should probably get a fuel injection put on that so you can go rip on it and get it put up for sale. So if anyone wants to buy a real sweet Catalina with a big stroker engine,
Well, that's the deal.
there's one next door.
That's the motor. That's the deal. The motor's probably worth $24,000, but the car is probably worth
24 grand.
maybe 10, 18. It's a Pontiac. It's not a Mopar. Doesn't matter what you do.
Got a lot of Porsche questions here for you.
There are Porsche questions. Someone's asking about your opinion on 996 bore scoring. Replate, they're not plated, they're alusil, we can talk about that. Or use LN Engineering sleeves. LN Engineering doesn't sleeve their blocks, they do a Nicosil coating on the cylinders, and that's done by Millennium Technologies, who's big in the dirt bike world, or bike world.
So they just put a layer of coating over the top?
Yeah, yeah, it's a PVD coating. Well, I don't know what. It's not a PVD coating, but it's a deposited hard coating on the cylinder bore that can be honed, and it's tough. I mean, all the Porsche air-cooled engines had a Nicosil coating, and a lot of dirt bikes have those. It's valid and it's a good coating, but fuck, they're unforgiving when you overheat them or run them out of oil. But so is alusil. This is of your era, Chevy Vega. Chevy Vega was one of the first mass-produced implementations of alusil, and alusil is
bad.
it was pretty bad. So alusil is an aluminum cylinder with a matrix of silicon throughout the casting. So you hone it like normal, but then you remove that aluminum layer with a lapping compound, essentially. Same thing you lap valves with. And then what's left is this hardened, this hard silicon layer that the rings ride on. But the problem is you've got still have an aluminum base material with an aluminum piston, and aluminum on aluminum doesn't work nice because it just can't help itself but want to make babies with each other. So you have to have special coatings on the piston to play nice with the similar materials. So like Porsche engines had a cast iron or a ferritic based coating on the pistons that worked as that lubricity dissimilar bearing surface material, and it worked really well until that coating went away. But I mean, it's been a thing since the 70s. It's still a thing today. Toyota, all the German brands, it's still common. Vehicles are still made and run every day with these stupid aluminum cylinders. I mean, I own one. Bore scoring in Porsches probably has to do with lack of maintenance, overheating, lack of maintenance and neglect, and probably a little bit of luck because there were coating changes over the years where they went from a ferritic iron-based coating to a plastic PTFE Teflon-based coating. But not to discredit Teflon plastic skirt coatings on a piston, because if you buy a set of pistons from Cosworth, they come with a plastic coating on the piston. on the piston skirt. It's just a thing. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just a different thing. It may be less forgiving to neglect, but that's your fault. Don't blame me. I don't know. Yeah, that was it for the Porsche questions. I do not desire a 944 ever again. 300ZX twin turbo. Remember those? Pretty car.
Yeah.
You couldn't have hands small enough to ever work on them. Have you ever ported any diesel heads? A local tuner guy says that you should not apply the same principle to gasoline engines. I'm from the European Union. I'm sorry. So mostly smaller engines like BMW diesel 6-cylinders. Same principles apply to any engine that runs on a 4-cycle, any 4-cycle engine. So
port volume and RPM.
yeah, it's an air pump. So air needs to get in and out. Porting, all engines will respond to porting. Most of the time, you can do basics and make an improvement. Diesels are pretty crude.
It's the exhaust side you got to worry about on diesel because you're always pushing large volumes of dense.
Yeah, the problem with diesels is the more fuel you put into them, the more fuel and air you put into them, the higher your EGTs, your exhaust temperatures, increase, and that's where you start wrecking shit. So when we were at RPM, I don't know, were you still big and was the diesel performance still really heavy when you got involved with RPM?
Oh, I always say it's RPM automotive and diesel.
Yeah, so
but like you said, they're air pumps. The smoother the air flows, the more efficient they're going to be.
And you can take heat out. You can take heat out of exhaust gases by expanding them. You keep them tight. You can maintain the heat in it. You can actually keep heat in it by reducing size, and then expanding on the other side to create draw.
A lot of guys freak out about all these things that I've got to do, but at RPM with the 5.9 liter based Cummins engines, you could make 1,200 horsepower on an untouched cylinder head with fuel and boost. A lot of people didn't believe that early on. Now that's a common thing, but at that time, it was when you told somebody that, they would go, "No way," or "Really, you did that?" It was really shocking, but I mean, it's really common now, and that was less than, that was 6-7 years ago. So shit's changed. A lot has changed, and especially since diesel performance market is so hot right now. It's there's so many people that have their hands in it, and that doesn't mean that there's a lot of great stuff out there. But the diesel thing, I just want to say, they're pretty crude generally. So you can.
It's all about fuel.
Yeah. So you can do quite a bit, and do quite a bit wrong, and you can make an improvement. So it's the window for improvement is pretty large on most diesels.
Yeah, the whole air fuel thing, it just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
There's no that optimum is just kind of wow.
Yeah, it's with the diesel, it's fuel timing and how much fuel and air can you shove in there, and then the problem with, I'll use the Cummins specifically. The problem is holding it all together. If that fuel and air doesn't have anywhere to go, you'll pretty typically split the cylinders off the top of the block, and the cylinders will go up into the sky, total the truck, and the crank and rods will still be sitting there attached to the chassis.
Everybody see that tractor pull.
Yeah. So now with how big the diesel stuff is, it's they'll literally run straps to the chassis and attach them to the block to catch the block.
Yeah, liability for the crowd. Yeah.
Dude, insanity.
Saw themselves in half.
Yeah.
Lengthwise, longitudinally, horizontally.
Did you have any big blow-ups with the diesels?
On the dyno?
No, just any at all. Anything you worked on came back with a blow-up?
Couple things lifting the heads off the block, but nothing that blew up.
Nothing catastrophic?
No. I
had one that was almost catastrophic. And this was the end of my involvement in this engine program. We used to put in powdered metal valve seats into the diesels, and they're great, I think, in a stock to like stock plus application, you know, a little bit of power adder, it's cool. But this thing was making like 2,500 horsepower, mind you, with no cooling in the block. It was only had water running through the head. After one season, it came apart. I think what was happening was it kept popping head gaskets. Well, I have the head apart. Do some work to it. The guy kept popping head gaskets again, and he has the thing all the way in pieces. I couldn't find anything wrong with the head. And then he starts prying on the valve seats. And the valve seats came apart in pieces, just on the bench.
It just hammered them into pieces?
Yeah, so they were either broken and cracked in pieces, or they became so brittle with the temperature that prying was enough to split it apart. But that was the closest I got to a big blow up with the diesels.
It decentered them?
It decentered them. Yeah, that's exactly true. Yeah, so I think that temperature made things a touch fragile. So,
like my dad always said, that's because of the temperature.
All right. Well, it's 3 o'clock. I think that's it. That's the end of the live stream. So thanks, guys, for coming. I think we can put a pin in it here because we're all hungry and we're going to barbecue. Oh. So it's that time. We're only here for an hour.
Slick.
Yeah.
That fast?
That fast. That went by fast. I told you it would be easy.
So got a freckle past the hair?
A freckle, a blonde one past the cunt hair. So thank you guys for joining. So we'll see. I'll get this edited and put it up tonight along with this weekend's video. So appreciate it. I'll see you guys. All right, that's it. We're done. That's fucking everything.
Easy enough.
Easy enough. You hungry?
Oh, I'm gonna be.
I'm gonna cook.